This episode of the MSP podcast is brought to you by Big Tex Outdoors. Everything you could possibly need for your firearm. If he doesn't have it, you probably don't need it. And PHLster holsters. Can't do a sub 5-second fast drill? We'll get a PHLster holster. If you still can't, well, at least you know it's not the holster's fault. Anyway, hey guys, welcome back to the MSP podcast, nicknamed the Get Better podcast, nicknamed the Self-Reliant Lifestyle podcast. Why do I say self-reliant instead of the 2A? Because it's more than just about GATs. You got martial arts, you got nutrition, and practicing with your firearm to defend yourself. That being said, super stoked to have Caleb Giddings of the internet.
Of the internet. Yeah, no, that's about accurate. I'm from the internet and I'm here to help.
Exactly. On my show, per my thing, I don't like to do intros for people. So Caleb, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Caleb Giddings and I'm from the internet and I'm here to help. But in all seriousness, I've got a long background in competition shooting. A lot of people know me for shooting a wheel gun, specifically a speed loader gun at a fairly high level for a while. And then I also, I'm a firearms instructor for the Air Force. I run a website and a YouTube channel that you can find at Gun Nuts Media, and I freelance for pretty much anybody who will pay me. So if you're looking for a good writer, hi, I'm Caleb. You can reach me at caleb.giddings@gmail.com for inquiries. But I've been doing content creation for the firearms industry for over a decade now, and along that ride, I've had the opportunity to take a ton of really great training, both private sector and military training, in conjunction with my military job, and obviously have shot some competitions at a pretty high level as well. And I like to shoot, and I like to tell people that their guns suck on the internet.
That's pretty all-encompassing.
And there's one other little detail that I almost left out. I'm also Fastcoin number 18 holder.
Nice. Why don't you tell? They've heard enough from me. Why don't you tell the people that are living under a rock that don't know what the fast drill and the subsequent coin is?
You know, at this point, you would think everybody who has taken a class that from a let me qualify this. I feel like if you've taken a class from a reputable instructor, you should know what the fast drill is because it's extremely well known. Lots of people who know who it is. It was created by my departed friend, Todd Green, and it's a very simple drill. It's fired from concealment or a duty rig, and it's draw, fire 2 shots to a 3x5 card, gun goes to slide lock because you only have 2 in it, you reload from slide lock, fire 4 to an 8-inch circle. On the surface, it sounds super simple. Actually performing it under pressure, very, very difficult. To get a coin, it used to be you had to do it 2 times under 5 seconds in front of Todd. Once Todd passed away, he passed the torch on to Ernest Langdon, who, if you don't know who Ernest Langdon is, get on Google, for crying out loud. And so he passed the torch to Ernest, and Ernest now runs the fast drill in his classes. And the rules are still the same. Concealment or duty rig, you've got to have 2 clean runs, no misses, in under 5 seconds in front of Ernest in one of his classes. And let me tell you, when you talk about performance under pressure, standing there with Ernest watching you, and in my class, I had extra fun because I had Tom Gibbons in my class that I got to come to. So I've got like 2 of the greatest firearms instructors of all time just standing there, and I'm like, this is not what I was envisioning today, because it was raining and it sucked. Like, it was one of those days where you don't want to shoot. I didn't want to be on the line, and it's raining sideways and it's cloudy and I'm cold in Miami, which is unusual, and wet. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just get this over with, Ernest. Just hit the timer. I'll shoot. And as a performance note, because I was so miserable from being wet, I really wasn't thinking about my shooting, which is the best place for my mind to be. Because I was like, oh, look, the front sight's there. Bang. Oh, it's there again. Bang. Oh, better do that reload. God, can I get this over with faster? And that was my first run. And when Ernest told me I had like a 475 on the first run, then I started thinking about my shooting. I didn't think about it for the first one. That second one, I was definitely like very intentional with everything that I did.
Yeah. And did you have also another, I'm going to use the word detriment. It's probably not the right word, right? But weren't you shooting it with like a 2-shot Derringer or something fucked up like that?
Yeah, pretty much. According to the internet, DASA guns are impossible to shoot well. And I was shooting it with a Beretta 92 with the factory Beretta sights. Like the only thing I've done to those sights is I took a Sharpie and I blacked out the dots on the rears. So I've got a white dot on the front. And yeah, the gun. I've obviously done some internal work to the gun, but people, it's not hard to shoot a DASA well because, and this is something Ernest and I have talked about, you have to do a ton of work to get a striker fired gun to have as good a trigger as the single action trigger in my Beretta that I can get with a spring change.
Yep, fair enough. Fair enough. I will tell you, I mean, not all DASA guns are built the same,
I
though.
agree.
Yeah. So I will say that on the Beretta 92, a nicely done Beretta 92, I actually prefer, and I'm going to get all the hate from my millennial friends, I actually prefer it to a nicely done CZ trigger. Now, that being said, I don't have a lot of DASA time, but of the ones that I have shot of a nicely done 92, like Ernest's, I actually like that better than I like a CZ double actions, single actions.
So, in my experience with DASA guns, it's easier to get a better trigger out of a 92 than it is to get one out of a CZ. And I don't know, like, I'm a Beretta certified armor. I am not a CZ certified armor. You take that thing apart and all this Eastern European magic comes out of it. And I don't know what the heck's going on.
Yeah.
But
sickles and hammers start flowing out of
weird. But I will say the nicest DASA gun I ever had, I had a Tanfolio Stock 2 in 38 Super that I'd had some work done to, and that gun was stupid. I mean, and also because it was all steel and I was shooting Atlanta Arms 38 Super loads out of it, so it didn't really move when you shot it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think generally speaking, it's easier to get a good DA trigger out of a Beretta, and because I think the starting point's better. Like if you stack up the DASA guns next to each other, right? So your 92 series Berettas out of the box have decent triggers, regardless of what some guy who was a supply cook in the Army says. The 92's got a solid trigger on it out of the box. All right, it's perfectly shootable. I think the CZ factory triggers are not good out of the box. Like the DA on them isn't great. The single action's kind of long. That's not to say you can't clean up a CZ trigger because there's lots of people shooting CZs that would blow my doors off in a match.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think just if you're comparing out of the box triggers, my number one's going to be your 92 series Berettas. My number two is going to be your third gen Smiths, which are so good. And then you're going to have like the CZ kind of Tanfo family down there around your third place.
Sure.
And then you get your weird DA guns.
Yep. I think the audience knows. So you have coin 18, right? I have coin 15. So that's why we're like the Wonder Twins up in here. Anyway, what did you, since the podcast is about getting better, right? And how many times did you try and go for the fast coin before? I don't know if
this was my third try for it.
Okay. Can you kind of take us through the progression of how you got better? I know you said that, it was raining and stuff like that. And it's like, well, this ain't going to happen. So I don't care. So then you did it.
Right.
Then you did it. Right. But was there a progression of skill? One of the things I disagree with, God bless everybody on the pistol forum and stuff. And I think they kind of got this as an interpretation from something Todd said in the past was you're not supposed to practice the fast draw. Right. I disagree with that. I think you need to practice everything, but who am I? What did you do? How did you get to that level?
So I had the first time I did it, I tried for it. It was with Todd and didn't get it then. And then I had kind of a layoff in between for a while from serious shooting in between that and when I went after it the second time, which was with Ernest. And then in between the second try with Ernest, I shot like a 520 something, right? So I was close. I knew I was there because I could do it occasionally in practice and stuff like that. So what I did in between then was I didn't shoot a lot, but I took my practice sessions. I took my dry fire sessions and I focused my dry fire sessions on two skills. for about 6 months, all I did in dry fire was draw from a retention holster and slide lock reloads.
Mm-hmm.
And because those are, the two big manual parts of the fast that you can practice in dry fire is getting that draw to a small target. And because I'm using a DA gun, I can work on staging the trigger as I move the gun,
Mm-hmm.
and then doing a slide lock reload to the circle. So I've really spent my dry fire sessions, and I don't dry fire a lot. Like I would do 15 minutes a day, 3 days a week. That would be it. So on the same days that I ran, running days became dry fire days too. But it was focused. It was focused, reduced part-time training. And then my live fire sessions, I took the same approach. And what I would do is I would work on I would go and I would shoot the fast. I would kind of I would stick a little bit to Todd's old guidelines of like 3 times a day is what you should shoot. I would do it 6 though. So I would go and I would shoot it 3 times at the start of my practice session. And this is my benchmark. Here's how I'm shooting today cold. Then I would go and I would do 2-shot draws to a 3x5 box. Then I would do 1 reload, 2 to the body, and then I wouldn't do a lot of bill drills, but I would do 2 or 3 or 4 bill drills kind of at the end to work on getting that rapid controlled cadence for those last 4 shots. And then I would go and I would shoot it again. And I'd shoot the fast 3 more times, and I would look at the times. And the whole time I'm doing this is something that's important. I'm recording numbers. I'm like, when I'm doing the fast, I'm recording my times. When I'm doing the 2 shots to the head box, I'm setting par times for myself. Like my goal was to be able to draw and get 2 shots to the 3x5 card under 175. That's what I'm trying to do for a goal. My reload needs to be under 2. My bill drill needs to be XYZ. And I actually shot way less last year in terms of overall round count. I ended up shooting like maybe 5,000 rounds the whole year, but 3,000 of it was in this very focused practice for the coin. And having that really laser-like focus to accomplish this shooting goal was really what allowed me to get to the point where when it's raining sideways and I don't care, my brain and my trigger finger and my eyes all already know what to do because they've done it 100,000 times in practice.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's the thing. Who was I talking to? My buddy Donovan Moore in Chicago, and he was asking me about the fast because he's getting out of he was a Naval Special Warfare EOD, right? So he's getting out soon, and he owns Point One Tactics. Great guy. So he wants to start. He just won my black belt patch, the first one. Dude blazed it, man. And he wants to kind of get the accolades and stuff. So he's asking me, I'm like, well, you got the black belt patch. That's cool. The only other 2, because it's, he's going to be a civilian, to get those civilian creds would be the turbo pin.
Right.
And the fast coin, right? So I gave him some pointers there, and this is what I told him. This is what I tell everybody that they ignore on Pistol Forum, right? It's exactly what you said, right? And it doesn't even need to be that fast. It's a 1.5 draw to the head, 50 split, 2-second reload, 25 splits, which means you need to let it go on the last 3. That's a 4.75.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's the thing that, I talked to, and if Ernest sees this, but I actually talked to Ben Steger about the fast drill a couple of times because I've known Ben so the funny story, I've known Ben before he was like Ben, right? Back when he was just a really good GM shooting a Beretta before he kind of became like the internet boogeyman Ben Steger that he was for a while. And he's, in his defense, by the way, he's really ratcheted that back. Like he's super chill now. He hasn't started any internet flame wars recently.
Well,
but anyway,
he's been out of country for like a month or so it's kind of easy to do that.
Yeah. I mean, okay. To Ben's credit, he is living the damn life. He flies all over the country, all over the freaking planet, teaching classes, shooting matches. He comes back to America to win nationals, and then he goes and fucks off to Australia for 3 months to teach classes down there or something. And I'm like, what? Good for you, dude. Live the life, right?
Well, he's the embodiment of what we just talked about, breaking down the fast drill and practicing the components and becoming proficient of that. He's turned the entire game of USPSA and IPSC into that. I'm going to have him on the show. He said he'd be on the show soon when he got back in the country, so I'm super stoked with that. He's turned the entire game into breaking it down into micro drills and then putting it together. And I think that's the thing. Once you do that and you define the process, the result just happens.
Yeah,
You know
he's
what I
absolutely. Yeah, and that's the thing is you have to, there's Gabe White talks about being process focused in your
mean? Yep.
shooting, which is it's a concept that I think maybe people take a little bit too far because I don't believe, and this is something that I disagree with Gabe on. I don't believe you can divorce the process from the results, and maybe that's just the way I'm wired.
Yeah.
Because for me, the result is actually, or maybe it's just a misunderstanding because I haven't taken Gabe's class, but for me, the result is part of the process. Like I'm doing this process because result X is desirable, whether that's a fast coin or winning a gunfight. At least to me, you have to be process focused, but you can't be process focused to the point where you ignore the value that the result has for you.
Sure, 100%, absolutely. And that's a great point bringing that up. Um, the analogy that I try and use, or the metaphor, I always get confused on which one I need to use at the same time. Anyway, I need to talk to you or Tamara Keo, my wordsmith friends. So I guess the metaphor I use on that is, look, it's a destination. You have to know what the destination is, right? Because that's the metric. If you don't have the metric, you're just making noise and holes in paper, right?
Yeah.
But I liken it to when you take a trip, right? So you're taking a trip along the coastline and it's beautiful, right? When you're a kid with your parents, but you're so worried about, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? You're missing all the glory of the coastline. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where if you focused on what was going on during the trip would seem much shorter.
Yeah. When
Right.
it's the idea that, anybody who's run any sort of distance, whether it's a 5K or a half marathon, you have to be intentional about what you're doing in that point of the run. Like for me, I used to run 5K races for fun. And for me, it was, I'm making it to the end of this corner. Now I need to make it to that stop sign. Now I need to make it to that. And I enjoy, and by having focus on the small portions, the small victories, or whatever you want to call them, of that run, it makes the overall process of running 5 miles or whatever a lot more entertaining.
Right.
Or
Got it.
less awful.
And I'm sorry, we kind of diverted off. What did Ben tell you about the fast drill?
Oh, so one of the things Ben told me about the fast drill was that what makes fast drill interesting and why you see guys who maybe are really high level competition shooters not be able to shoot it necessarily as well as they could shoot classifier is because of the penalties in the fast drill. Like Ben, this was years and years ago. I was talking to him about this, and he was like, he's like, yes, I can run the fast drill in 3 or whatever seconds.
Sure. Yeah.
But if I was shooting it in a class for a coin, my time would probably be around 4.25 or something like that because of the penalty structure. The penalty for a mistake in the fast drill is you're not getting a coin, basically. Like if you miss a headshot, you're done. You're just done.
You're done. It's like getting DQ'd if you get anything out of the A box.
Yeah,
Actually, it's even worse than that with a 3x5. So
yeah, with a 3x5, it's not a DQ. They take your soul.
Yeah.
And they're just like, you're done. Just go
Yeah.
quit. You can't come back from this moment today.
Yeah. And the way Ernest does it, he doesn't mean to do it, right? Because he does it so many times, but it's just like, oh, hey, man, no big deal. Or he'll go, okay, clean run, 5.1, and walk off.
And yeah, he just walks away. The
Right.
worst, though, and we could eventually stop talking about the fast coin, is after I shot my second run, he goes, all right, and your time was, and then he just stops. And I swear he just didn't read that timer for 10 seconds. And I'm like, Ernest, if you don't read me that time, I have a loaded gun.
Yeah. No, but I think it's important, guys. I don't want the internet to think this is a whole bunch of self-congratulatory stuff about two fast coin owners, but it helped me breaking that down and getting the information. I had so many epiphanies when I was going for that coin and practicing up to that has paid incredible dividends in my shooting career from then out. It's important to talk about it, right? Especially from two views. So
well, and the other thing too that I genuinely believe is that and again, a lot of this depends on how a person is wired, like mentally. I've never been able to just go practice for the sake of practice, right?
I'm saying
like
way.
like I don't want to. I did uh, competition martial arts all the way up into my early 20s, and I knew I had to practice, but it was always easier to practice when I had a tournament coming up or a meet or
Sure.
something where there was a goal as to why I was practicing. And the same is true with shooting, at least for me. Knowing that I have this thing, like I'm taking Ernest's class at blah blah blah, I need to practice, is gives me a motivation to actually put my gun on and go practice. And I know that there are some super weirdos out there who are like, I try fire every day because it's important to do. And I'm like, cool, that doesn't work for me. That's just not the way I'm wired.
Right. Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about more about your internet persona and why,
Okay.
yeah, and why I used to not appreciate you, and now I appreciate you. And it's not just because we're friends, right? But here's how I see Caleb Giddings, the good troll, right? So let's
The
talk
good
about the good
that
troll.
I am putting on a business card.
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk about trolls, especially in the firearms industry, whether or not they be. There's really not that many trolls on the tactical side. They're just generally, I mean, they're dicks. They're not having fun. They're just dicks, right?
Right.
More so on the competitive side of things. There's our I want to see the world burn troll. I don't
Mm,
care. And then there's the stupid I'm C class, but I want to be relevant troll, right?
yeah.
And then there's the good troll. Okay, let's explain all three and see if you agree or disagree with me, right? So there's
Sure.
plenty of them out there that just want to see the world burn, right? Which when Ben was at his height, I don't think that was him.
No,
He
no,
was
and
good.
I know I agree with that. I think when Ben was, Ben the Troll King of Duty Project,
Right.
I just said a cursed word. By the way, this podcast is going to get destroyed. I said
Oh, you said duty?
I
Yeah.
did, yeah. So,
Yeah, it's all right.
but in all seriousness, when he was at his peak, he wasn't he was he definitely trolled, but the I want to see the world burn people were people who fed off of Ben's trolling. Like he had this group of followers who were definitely of that mindset of we're just going to cause chaos and run amok in USPSA. But I don't think that was ever actually Ben's. I don't think that was Ben's goal. I think it was more he definitely had some valid opinions and questions and wasn't super great at expressing them in a way that didn't make people want to punch him in the face.
Sure, he's just a very straightforward guy. And guys, I mean, they're like, look, I get it, man. I'm not making excuses for Ben, right? I'm just
Mm-hmm.
telling you what I see, right? And when he was out there, he was like, why is everybody going crazy over this thing? This thing is stupid, right? And he just
Right.
didn't do it in any sort of political or nice way, and that just caused it. And then when duty, and that's like the other thing, right? It inspired a whole bunch of D and C class shooters who don't want to practice, but they just want to praise the on high God of Ben
Right.
Steger, and let's go cause chaos, and because I'm not good enough to be on 4chan or some shit like that, right?
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
and
so that's your world burn guys and your kind of D class guys who want to be relevant.
yeah. So then let's get to the good troll part, right? The good troll part is like, you were saying these things, and you have all these people saying, "Yay, we shoot guns together, pat on the back." Or there's guys who do legitimate good stuff, but maybe have not investigated as to why they're doing it. And then here comes the good troll, right? Here comes Caleb Gidding that says, "I don't know why this is significant. This is why I think it's not significant." And it wasn't a matter of, hey, you suck, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I question this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And if the person was of a thick skin, just say, like, I don't know, maybe he won a fast coin with a Roland special and he was getting fucking hammered on the internet for it, right? He could defend himself, right?
Right.
If it was a person lesser than that who had not thought about their position or pressure tested their skills or their position, here comes good trolls. I would put like you probably don't know him, but a friend of mine, Matt Olachek, he's out of PA.
I know of him actually.
Yeah,
We've trolled each other on back
yes,
and forth.
I'm sure you have, right? But in the end, you wind up getting better and thinking of your position more. You know,
Mm-hmm.
how would you characterize yourself in that? Am I right about that? Am I completely off base?
No, I think that's accurate, and I think that there's probably some people who disagree with your assessment of me, but that's okay. The the idea is, and the thing that I've kind of come around to after, again, I've been doing this for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I started out, I was very, earnest, and not the name, but I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I wanted to share good information and my learning process as well. And as I've done this longer, I've sort of reached a point now where if I can just get you to think, I'm going to be happy with that as a result. Like if I can just get, so if I put out a video, like a shit talking video, right? Like the 5 worst guns for concealed carry, I
Yeah.
will try to bury in that a little bit of knowledge. Like, hey, I'm talking crap about Bursas and Tauruses and Derringers and stuff like that. And then somewhere in there, I'm going to put like one little bit, like the reason why this gun isn't good has nothing to do with who made it and everything to do with the way people are buying it. And if 2.5 million people see that video and 2% of them think, just
Yeah.
2%, then
Yep.
I'm happy with that. And that's a result. And you can't, I don't remember exactly the moment when I was like, you can't save everyone, because you can't. You will
Mm-hmm.
never be able to stop all the derpy comments, and you'll never be able to unsell all the Taurus judges in the world. But you can maybe make that guy who bought an XD, an XDM 45 compact because stopping power, maybe you can make him think a little bit and go, am I making optimal life choices here? And if he goes through that process and he goes, you know what? I'm not jumping out of a helicopter with a knife in my teeth, and I don't care about winning USPSA matches, and I can shoot a B8 within a reasonable time with my XDM 45 and it doesn't malfunction. Great. You know what? Hominis dominus. Go with God.
Yeah. Yep. 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 Exactly. Exactly. So awesome. What was I going to say? Here's the thing about that, right? And I've talked to Landfair about that. If you're not causing a stink and getting people upset a lot of the time, uh, you're not doing something right. No one's caring about what you're saying, right?
Absolutely.
But the main thing is the guys that you're talking about, the ones who don't post, right? That are just that silent middle, right? That you're affecting the most, right? They're on the edge. They're on the edge. It's like, well, I can get this Beretta, or I can get the Taurus fucking whatever model. I don't even know what their models are now. Do they even have a full size gun these days? I don't
Yeah,
even know.
they're still making the PT92, their Beretta knockoff. So
Okay. So there's probably what, a $200 to $300 swing in the price, right? And
yeah,
maybe we sway one to go one way or the other. They're the ones that aren't saying anything until you see them, right? You see them at a match, or you see them at the range. And then you're like, oh, well, how come you didn't speak up while I was getting dogpiled by the fanboys?
right. Well, and that's the thing too, is you see a lot of that's the other part of, and we kind of mentioned this on a primary and secondary modcast that you weren't on, where we talked about like white knights and fanboys. They complicate this process too, because in any online discussion, you're going to have a certain percentage of people that are just there to talk shit. They're just there to watch the world burn. You're going to have a certain percentage of people that are there to just defend their own irrational opinion of something without really thinking it through. Like their mind is made up. And
Yeah.
then you're going to have some people who are there to actually have an honest discussion and an honest conversation. And the trick is, in any online discussion, trying to reach those people. And some people do a really great job of putting out like good, pure. Here's a perfectly good example of why I've arrived at the conclusion, why I do business the way I do, why I put information out the way I put it out. So Chuck Pressburg put out a video a couple of days ago that lit the internet on fire.
Yep.
Because people didn't watch the whole video.
Right.
And that was it entirely. I'm a competition shooter and a tactical shooter. I live in both of these worlds. I watched the whole video and I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. There's nothing in here that's particularly controversial, but people watched the first 3 minutes of a 6-minute video and just let me show you my opinion now,
Right.
which I haven't really actually thought through because I don't have all the information. Um, and yet that video, which is actually a very good video, it's smart, it's well thought out, it's got good information. It's probably got it. I think it's only got like 10, maybe 20,000 views right now, right?
Yep.
I do a video called "The 5 Worst Guns for Concealed Carry." It's got like 2.5 million views.
Right. Right.
You can put out informative, educational content, and it's going to get stuff with a clickbaity title that you hide good information in, and it'll do better. So that's kind of, and that's why I've arrived where I am is, if I do this video called the one I'm actually working on that I'm filming today is concealed carry rotations are stupid, and I've got that clickbaity title, but then in it I explain that there's a difference between having different guns for different purposes. That's normal. That's fine. A concealed carry rotation is it's Tuesday, I'm carrying the 3rd Gen Smith today, and then on Friday I carry the HK VP9 because HK days are Fridays. That's dumb. That's
right.
ludicrous.
Yeah. The thing I found about that video that was frustrating and on the tactical side and the competition side, but stupid comments were coming from both sides.
It was I checked into one comment thread on Facebook and I read like 4 comments and I was like, nope, I don't want anything to do with this.
Well, I actually hopped in and it started something right about let's talk about for those of you that don't know, right, there are some derogatory terms that one side calls the other, which I actually think was propagated by Ben Steger, right? You've got
tactical
Timmies and gamer fags,
right?
And that is kind of prop. So let's talk about the Timmy side. There was literally a dude who said on there, so hey, thank you, Chuck, for actually explaining why real tactical people keep on saying that competition will get you killed in the streets. And I was like, I can't let that one go. I go, that's absolutely not what he said. What he said
at all.
He didn't say that at all. So I said that, and people started piling on, backing me up on this poor guy who never said anything in return. A couple evenings, I saw the first 2 minutes, and this was my opportunity to raise the competition flag. Because he said going fast all the time isn't the goal, and fuck him, right? And I'm like, you didn't listen to the whole video, stupid.
No, especially the part at the end where he's like, and that's why I'm gonna start shooting more competition because it's cool. I was like, did you guys not? I had one of those moments where reading the comments where I felt like everybody watched a different video than the one I watched.
Yeah, it's like it was like that blue-green dress thing, man.
Right.
It's like, what are you people doing?
Yeah.
Shut up. And it's like, oh, he's wrong, and he was former this, and that, and that proves all Timmies are assholes, right? And then on the other side, he's like, oh, no, he's proving killed in the streets is right, and, I'm a barrel-chested freedom fighter working at a dry cleaner shop, and I'm with on. It's like, shut up. Shut up.
Every now and then you get a piece of content that turns into a pretty good ink blot test because people will see in it whatever it is that they already wanted to see. And I think Chuck's video is a good example of that, is that if you watch Chuck's video and you come away with the idea that, fuck people who shoot competition, you already had that idea in your head.
Right.
And if you come away with that from that video, thinking whatever about tactical Timmies, it's because that idea was already in your head and you had made up your mind about the content prior to seeing it. And whether it was because you'd heard about the video or who Chuck is or whatever, and this is kind of that other thing. This job would be a lot easier, and by that I mean the job of instruction, the job of media. All of these jobs would be a lot easier if people would approach stuff with a little bit of intellectual honesty about their own biases.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely. So awesome. So what do you got cooking, man? You do a whole bunch of things in the industry. You make content. You write for some people. You do a lot of testing. Let's go through some of that. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you hate about it.
I like the freedom to walk my dog whenever I want and not be really beholden to one specific master, which is nice. I think on the testing side, I'm working on a project with Beretta where I'm shooting the APX a lot. And it's really, and anything that I'm about to say before people like start emailing Beretta, oh my God, what Caleb said, I've literally said to Beretta employees,
Sure.
the APX is great. It's a perfectly acceptable striker fired 9mm handgun. The problem is, and this is something that I've said several times, is we are currently in the golden age of
Yeah.
striker fired 9mm handguns.
Yep.
You could take, like, if I had to, so if the Air Force tomorrow morning, instead of issuing us all M18s, which is what they're going to do, if they threw a VP9, a SIG 320, an APX, or a Glock 19 into a bag, and they said, just grab one, and that's what you have to carry for your next deployment, I wouldn't care which one I grab.
It would not
Because
care.
they're all the same in the sense they're all designed to do the exact same thing. They're all designed to hold a certain number of rounds, fit into a certain size fit into a certain physical bucket in terms of size, and all be reliable under extreme conditions. And they all do a great job at it. It's great. If you love striker fired 9mm handguns, you are in a great place right now.
Yep.
And so that's one of the things that I've been working on is working with evaluating the APX. And again, I think it's fine. It is just as fine as all of the other ones. So if you want to go out and buy a striker fired gun that doesn't say Glock on it, you have wonderful options. You're in a world of reliable options now.
Absolutely, especially and then you got Walther with all their stuff,
right,
man, and
the PQs, the FN 509. I have not shot the 509, but I've heard it's very, very good. Yeah, I think the other thing that I'm working on right now is there's a piece up on Recoil's website called Gunfighting, the American Martial Art, and I wrote, and it's a overview, kind of building on this idea that gunfighting, especially with a handgun, is really an American martial art. And it's, yes, we've shot each other with handguns and fought with handguns before America even existed as a country, but no country like America has actually codified it into a system of martial arts.
Sure.
America's where the modern technique was developed. It's where modern isosceles was developed. It's the birthplace of practical shooting sports.
Yep.
And there's never been. And yes, there's lots of shooting people in other countries. South Africa has their own unique handgun culture, but there's no country that has a handgun fighting culture like the United States.
Well, I would say there wouldn't even be a handgun culture outside the United States if it wasn't for IPSC, which was created in the United States.
Right. And it's kind of cool right now to dog on Jeff Cooper for being like old and also dead. But one of the oh God, I got so many people to unfriend me once because I wrote a Jeff Cooper joke that was ripped out of an Eminem song. When Eminem said, yeah, and it was just years ago, what did Dr. Dre say? Nothing, Dre's dead, he's locked in my basement. So I took Dr. Dre out and replaced that with Jeff Cooper, and that made a lot of people really angry.
Yeah.
Because, and to be fair, in that context, I was right, because people were talking about how the modern technique was the pinnacle of handgun shooting, and I'm like, but it's not, because there were these two kids named Lethem and Enos that kind of changed things back in the 80s.
Yep.
But anyway, so I started this on Recoil, and there's so much in it to unpack that I'm going to hopefully turn it into a series on Recoil, kind of going through the evolution of, because we hit everything in that first article at like a 10,000 foot view. And I really want to actually dig into it and look at the evolution of it and kind of go from the progression of, the Wild West, as it were, which is where you see kind of the beginning of what we recognize as gunfighting culture, and all the way up through modern days, of 20 years of continuous warfare. And look at how that evolution parallels the development of practical martial arts, because the last two pieces will be comparing USPSA to mixed martial arts fighting. And I want to see how many people get really mad when I do that.
Yeah, dude. Here's a funny comparison on the other side of that. The first time I heard competition will get you killed in the streets wasn't in the firearms industry. It was
in the
Jiu-Jitsu.
dojo, right?
Yeah, it was in Jiu-Jitsu,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, super interesting. You know, it's funny, along the lines with Colonel Cooper, who, I mean, so many nuggets, even today, you can extrapolate things out of what he said. I actually looked up one time Colonel Cooper quotes, and you can literally bring up the first three, and all three of the links will have completely separate quotes from him. He was a genius in every, like the best one ever, right? The one that I always use, that he said that statistics are cold comfort for the man who just got hit by lightning.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
true.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous in every way. On the other hand, you know, in my classes, I teach why Weaver is less efficient and how they came up with that, and how Weaver actually had nerve damage in his left hand, so he couldn't straighten it out, yada, yada. And when you look at that, I liken it to, like, remember I don't know if you were into basketball ever, you know, watching it stuff, because you're one of the few guys that actually like sports ball. Right?
Back in the day, I used to be a huge San Antonio Spurs fan back when the Admiral was still playing.
Sure, yeah, absolutely, Robinson. But if you go back and look at old videos of like Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem, who else? Bob Cousy, yada yada. Those guys were the innovators of their time back then. But if you watch them compared to the stars of today, or even the stars of like the late '80s, early '90s, you're like, they're a shit show. What kind of goofy ass shit are they doing? But at the time, they were the innovators. That's how you kind of, like, Cooper didn't have an example out there before.
Right.
And it is amazing to me how spot on he was, even more than half a century later. A lot of the things he said still apply, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, and that's one of the things. And again, as someone who follows sports ball and, you know, regular sports as well as martial arts, I don't know why people in the firearms community think that development on how to shoot someone with a pistol should have stopped with Jeff Cooper, because no other backtrack that, and I'm stealing this. I want to say I'm stealing this from Aaron Cowan, because I think he was the guy who said it first. But for some reason, people have this idea that when you put a gun in your hand, all physics and
that was me. That was me.
Oh, that was you.
Yeah.
Okay, so so you get it. There's this idea that when we put a gun in our hands, all of a sudden everything we know about psychology and human kinetics all of a sudden goes out the window.
Right.
And I don't know why that is, because every other real sport, you know, baseball, like if you watch tape of guys pitching in 1907 and look at guys pitching today, those guys, like Babe Ruth, couldn't get a hit today. All right. And Babe Ruth was the greatest of all time, but there's no way Babe Ruth is going to hit the guys who were throwing 98-mile-an-hour sliders that move like they're teleporting.
From a pitching mound instead of a level surface where,
the game changes, things evolve and adapt. And if you look at martial arts, like, you know, empty hand martial arts, it's changed and adapted. The rise of mixed martial arts has given people a pressure testing ground where we can be like, oh, a lot of this stuff doesn't work when your opponent isn't necessarily playing by the exact same rules as you, you know? Because what works great in a Taekwondo, I did Taekwondo and I was pretty decent at it. And what works great in a Taekwondo fight probably doesn't work really well against a Muay Thai fighter, because we have two completely different rules that we're used to playing by.
Right. It's the rule set. And if you don't know the rules, then you're the idiot.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, and then for some reason, people are like, oh, well, Taekwondo's changed and Muay Thai's changed and baseball's changed and football's changed, but guns, that hasn't changed, you know?
Right.
And I'm like, but it should.
Yeah. So the thing I say is that the laws of physics and kinesiology do not change from sport to sport to physical activity. All of a sudden we put a gat in our hand and all that shit goes out the window, right? It's not true. It's absolutely not true, but we want it to be true. There's a couple reasons why I think that is, but that's a whole other 2 hours. But I think your article for Recoil could actually be a book.
It really could be. It's one of those things where, there's so much that you could dive. Like if I wanted to write it as a book, I could spend years. I could interview Robbie and interview Brian and talk to them about Rob Latham and Brian Enos, for those who don't know who I'm talking about, and talk about their process of really, I don't want to say discovering, but kind of discovering, the modern isosceles. And then even from there, things have evolved,
Yeah.
and things have changed. We don't, the whole concept of stance has evolved and changed, because you can look through in my lifetime, the art of shooting a handgun has changed more than it did in the previous 100 years.
I would agree with that.
You had the modern technique, was when I was born, that was it. It was the modern technique. Mm-hmm. And now you've had, the developments of USPSA, you've had 20 years of constant warfare. We had the Magpul era, where for some reason everybody wanted to bury their ears in between their elbows, which that was the one I fought the hardest against. I actually said you're better off shooting Weaver as taught by Jeff Cooper than you are shooting the Tactical Turtle.
Technically, you have better spinal alignment when you're shooting Weaver than when you're your Tactical Turtle, which, you've been through my class. The whole, your body goes where the eyes go and posture dominates, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would rather you stand mostly upright and use your eyes the way they were designed to be used, right, than bury your head and try to and the other thing too that I talk about this in my classes is when you start looking through the tops of your eyes or the bottoms, or, anytime you're cranking your eyes in a direction, you're degrading your visual perception.
Right.
And, it's there, you can throw 10, 20, whatever percent. I don't want to degrade my visual perception at all, because whether I'm using a handgun with iron sights or a handgun with a red dot, these are what I use to aim it. Right. So I want them to be working at the maximum level of efficiency. Whether it's and again, whether I'm looking through a window and superimposing a dot on a target, or using a laser, or I'm staring that front sight down because I'm trying to make a tough shot, I need this to work. This is the important bit. And if I do things that degrade that, everything else falls with that. And I fought the Tactical Timmy for years, and I still fight, or the Tactical Turtle, and I still fight the Tactical Turtle, because it's just, hunching up my shoulders, ducking my neck. It doesn't make any sense from a physiological perspective.
And you would never do that in any other physical activity or sport.
The only time I can think I would try to do it is if somebody had my back and was trying to get their arm in to choke me out. But that's because I'm trying to drop my chin to protect my neck. But if they've got my back, I'm fucked anyways.
And then you're going T-Rex and you're trying to get underneath and stuff like that. Yeah. But that has nothing to do with vision. You know why? Because the dude's behind you can't see him anyway.
Right. So. I'm reacting to the fact that all of a sudden there's a monkey on me and he's trying to put me into the next world, and I don't want to go there.
Exactly. So,
but yeah, I think there's a lot. Go ahead.
So I just want to get into what else you're doing so that we can kind of plug that stuff too. So you're doing some things with Lone Wolf as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, I just resigned from the thing with Lone Wolf, not because of anything bad. And I don't want people to get the wrong idea. I've worked with those guys before. I'll be happy to work with them again in the future. But with everything I had going on between the military and the freelancing and all of this other stuff, I wasn't able to give that particular gig the attention it deserved. I still think that they make bomb products, especially if you need barrels. Their barrels and their connectors are awesome. There's a dude who got upset. So a long time ago, Todd was running one of the Lone Wolf connectors in his gun, and he ran it 15,000 rounds, and then it broke. And I'm like, well, Todd, you put 15,000 rounds on it. You understand that's 14,950 rounds more than anyone else is going to put through one of these, right? So, I think they make I think they make great products, and it was just an issue. It was a personal bandwidth issue for me. I just didn't have the bandwidth to give it the attention that it really deserves with everything else I have going on. But I'm working. Working with Beretta on their projects. I've got a couple of things coming up that I can't talk about yet, but hopefully they'll be cool. And then, of course, I make regular content. Really, where I put the majority of my content right now is on my YouTube channel at it's youtube.com/gunnutsmedia. And I try to do a mix of educational and entertainment and a little bit of infotainment content in there as well. And yeah, that's pretty much, I mean, I'm one of those guys where you see me pop up in a lot of weird places like primary and secondary. I write for primary and secondary. I appear on the modcast whenever Matt wants somebody to stir shit up. He calls me. Yeah, I don't. That's not always true. The last time I was really well behaved, probably because I wasn't drinking whiskey out of a plastic bottle. But
Well,
the
at the very least, man, you're entertaining, right? And
and that's
you also mea culpa when you need a mea culpa. So
yeah, sometimes I go a little too hard in the paint and I hurt people's feelings. And that's part of the nature. And like, look, I'll be very honest with people. There are some people out there who hate me. There are some people who have hated me since I was on reality TV, and that's fine. If you don't like me, it doesn't. This is sort of advice that I would give to anybody who's looking to do what I do, whether it's content creation or be an instructor or anything like that. Is the only criticism that really matters says pay to the order of on it. And furthermore, if people like you or dislike you, you should only care about it if it takes money out of your pocket or food off your table. And and that's really the truth. Like if somebody dislikes me because I'm mean on the internet, I'm sorry. You know what? That's the for lack of a better term, that's the character that I play to get information out there. I'm actually pretty easy to get along with in the real world because I have this rule that if I say something on the internet, I'm also willing to repeat that. If I say something on the internet to a person, I'm 100% willing to repeat that to their face. No questions asked.
sure.
Like if Rob Pincus walked into my front door, I'd be really confused as to why Rob Pincus was walking into my front door first off. I'd be like,
Well, you know he
how did
doesn't
you
have a.
get past
Yeah, I know you
right?
don't have
Yeah,
a gun, bro, so it doesn't
yeah,
matter.
so we're fine. But I'd be very considered how he got past security to begin with.
Yeah.
But the next thing that I would be willing to say is, hey, most of the stuff you say is dumb as fuck, Rob. But that's an example. Uh,
Uh,
and
guys. Anyway,
I
so
really
I think we've already segued into the next portion, right? Which is the get it off your chest portion. So to reiterate to you and to the rest of the people in internet land here, the get it off your chest portion is what should people start doing to get better, and what should they stop doing to get better, right? Or anything else you want to cover. Don't talk about your neighbors. Nobody cares about your neighbors. So
I don't even okay. On the note of my neighbors, I've met my neighbor's wife 4 times. I still don't remember her name, and I feel terrible about that. She's a really nice lady.
yeah,
Anyway, so that's off my chest.
yeah,
What should people start doing to get better? Stop listening to the voice in your head, or what you should start doing to get better is care. Care about your result. All right. If you're just, and it doesn't matter what your result is. If you want to be high C class at nationals, that's cool. The guy who wins high C class at production nationals is a better shooter than 99.9% of the planet.
yep, yep,
That 0.1% that's better than him, they're really good.
yeah.
So
Yep.
care about your result, whether it's I want to be high C class, or I want to make GM, or I want to get a coin, or I want to be able to shoot dot torture clean at 3 yards. Care.
Yep.
It's okay to care. And I worry that we're pushing too far into this Zen mindset of divorcing yourself entirely from results and just focusing on the process. Yes, be focused on your process when you're doing the process, but process for the sake of itself to me just seems like masturbation. If there isn't a reason to why you're doing this, then why are you doing it?
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
I went through that in my shooting career where I didn't care, and so I stopped. And it was good for me to take that time off and to pull myself out. There was a time in my career where I was shooting 50. That's a lot of shooting. And I pulled myself back from that. I took time off and I focused on other things that I cared about more. And then, and that allowed me to, in the last couple of years, come back and care again and care about the results. And thus, if I care about the results, I care about the process. So what you should start doing is care a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot. Don't neglect your kids. Don't dump your life savings into this or anything like that. Don't be irresponsible, but it's okay to care. And it's okay to be invested in the result. All right. And then what people should stop doing is you should stop caring about other people's results.
Mm.
And this was a conversation I had with my friend Annette Evans, who runs Beauty Behind the Blast and is standing up a great training facility in Pennsylvania. So one of my shooting goals, I'm going to be gone thanks to Uncle Sugar for like 10 months. So I'm not going to be doing a lot of shooting. So one of my shooting goals when I come back is I want to IDPA, but I want to get the title of Distinguished Master in IDPA because there's only one way. There's only one road to that. You have to win. You have to be able to perform on match day. And she was like, well, yeah, but that also means that your ability to get that title is subject to other people's performance on that day. And I'm like, yes, it is. And that's what makes it interesting because I don't care about their performance, and that's the thing is stop caring about what other people are doing. Stop caring about how John Johnston is training or how, the guy that beat you at C class is training because that doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect your training. All right. Just because you lost or some guy beat you or, you finished second, you really wanted to win, care about your own result. Don't care about someone else's results because someone else's results aren't pulling the trigger. They're not lining up the sights. They're not doing your dry fire. So don't care about that. All right. There's no need to get invested in someone else's results because that really can lead to an incorrect performance focus. If you're trying to accomplish a goal and you're so focused on what this other guy is doing, that's computer cycles, that's brain sweat that you're not focusing on what you're doing. And the only way you're ever going to get better is if you focus on what you're doing.
Yeah. With competition, I heard this from my buddy Shannon Campbell. Shannon works for the State Department, and he's a master level shooter in limited. And he doesn't remember where he got it from. He just knows he got it from someone else. It's like you're not competing against the other people at the match. You're competing against the stage. You are trying to beat the stage.
Yep.
Before I let you go, though, because I know I'm going to get an interesting answer out of you, let's talk about IDPA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's talk about IDPA, right? So, contrary to what a lot of people think about, I don't hate IDPA, right? I hate a lot of IDPA match directors, right? So, yeah. So, so let's talk a little bit about that because IDPA is like that redheaded stepchild that gets punched by USPSA competitors entirely in the face. Some warranted, a lot warranted, a lot not, right? So when I used to travel to Charlotte a lot, I shot this one match, right? That was, oh my God, I can't remember the dude's name, but it had some good dudes in there. Most notably, Morgan Allen shot that match.
Morgan is a great dude, and he is a wicked good shooter.
Yes, 100%. So, and Dylan Glenn, who's also a master level guy down there, good guy, was kind of like the match guy, the match director guy. That was my first introduction to IDPA, and I was like, oh, well, this is cool. This is like USPSA with cover because of the way they ran their stages, right? Then I come back up to where I am now in Metro DC, and I don't like the flavor at all of which these matches are run up here. It's Dungeons and Dragons with guns, right? So if somebody knocks you off your bike and you need to shoot one-handed through blah blah blah. I'm like, what?
Why?
What? Because this is training. No, bro, this is a game. Anyway, that aside, I think IDPA, especially with the new rules, which are more and more like KSTG, the more I look at them. What do you think IDPA as an organization needs to do to spread the sport?
as an organization, I think they're moving in the right direction. And
I
before
would
I
agree
answer
with
this,
that. I would agree with that.
I have to full disclosure here. So I worked for IDPA in the past. I was a consultant for them during their couple of their growth phases. Joyce Wilson's a friend of mine.
Sure.
So I want people to understand where this is coming from when I say it. I think that where IDPA is at right now is the best place that they have been at in a long time.
Okay.
The introduction of fault lines to replace arbitrary cover calls. I shot the 2018 Nationals this year, and it was the last time I shot IDPA was in the was 2014 Nationals, and then I came back 4 years later, shot it again, and at the national championship level, IDPA is great. The matches are generally well put together. The stages are challenging, and what they do is they use the scenario concept to force tough marksmanship challenges, not tactical role playing. So, and at the national level, when you have a good match director, the match director for this last nationals, Chad Barber, was also the former match director for the indoor nationals, which was a really good match while it was still around. I think that right now IDPA is in a really good place. I think what they should do, and actually this is part of an article that I'm working on, is IDPA needs to embrace the tactical marksmanship culture and let itself be the shooting sport that is the idea innovator for things that we're seeing in the tactical side. Like IDPA just added carry optics. They added it after USPSA added it. And I think that should have been the other way around. Yep. IDPA should have looked out at the community and said, all these motherfuckers are putting dots on their guns. Dot division, done.
Right.
And I also think that the other thing I think that they should, so the two things that I would like to see IDPA do, I would like to see them expand I've had this idea for a long time of sort of an IDPA open division, all right, where you can have things like carry comps and Roland specials and guns with lights on them and all of this other stuff. And it still has to be concealable. So you're not going to see somebody roll up with, a Dillon Super Comp in ridiculous open gun. It still has to be concealable. It's still got to be carried in a way that's somewhat practical. But the two things that I would love to see IDPA do, and I'm just going to pick these two. IDPA open's ridiculous. I know that's never going to happen. But what I would like to see is a division where you can load your guns to full capacity. Set it, and maybe say, just to keep things a level playing field, let's say full capacity is 15. All right.
Sure.
So give me 15 plus 1, because every modern service pistol carries at least 15 bullets. I would like to see IDPA do that, and I'd like to see them specifically allow AIWB.
Yes.
And those are the two, though, because if IDPA wants to retain relevance and then also be the organization that is forward thinking, which I don't know if they want to do that, but I would like them to, IDPA should embrace AIWB carry. And I think that if they did that and did your IDPA unlimited division where you load your guns to full capacity and you can carry appendix, but you have to shoot that division to do it, I think that would be a very interesting and very competitive division. I would be really interested to see some of these dudes who are like, I won't shoot IDPA because they don't allow AIWB, and I won't shoot USPSA because it's too gamey. If IDPA allowed AIWB, I would be on my computer sending out emails. Be like, hey, bitch, guess what? Come to a match. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. And that would be my thing. Yeah. I'll be honest with you. The whole capacity thing, I would like to see that because I don't think reloads in a civilian capacity are all that important anyway.
Yeah.
Right. And it distinguishes the game from USPSA limited carry optics and yada yada, and it holds that thing with production, which basically IDPA wants to be concealed production in theory,
Yeah.
But the one thing is, if they allowed AIWB, I think the sport would explode.
I absolutely do. And I think that, the objections that you see to it are like, oh, well, there's the safety issue and stuff like that. I'm like, look, yes, is holstering a loaded gun at AIWB slightly more dangerous than holstering at traditional behind the hip? Well, not if you do it right. But I've been, as an RO, I've had more loaded guns pointed at me while someone tries to fish around for their 3 o'clock behind the hip holster than I ever have by guys who are carrying AIWB. And I think the other thing that IDPA could do, and this goes back to what you were talking about, is exercise more cultural control. Mm-hmm. So the USPSA does a good job of this. IPSC does a very good job of this. If you go to a USPSA match in Washington or a USPSA match in Florida, you'll see variations a little bit. Like some clubs like slightly more hoser stages, some clubs like, slightly more partials or whatever. You'll see variations, but it's largely going to be the same experience.
Absolutely.
Like I shot the Florida Open in last weekend and got junked. That match was tough. But it was immediately recognizable as a USPSA match that I could have shot in Miami or Arkansas or wherever. My big problem with IDPA is still that there's a lot of cultural variation when you're not at the national level, where they're at the national championship level and a couple of the bigger state matches, they are putting their best product forward.
Yeah.
And it's tightly controlled. There's a lot of oversight and that sort of stuff. But at the club match level, there is so much variation in what you can get, because you can get the, tactical kabuki scenarios where your right arm is wounded. You must shoot only left-handed while holding a baby with your teeth, and you get goofy shit like that. Or sometimes you'll go to matches where you have a good match director who understands that you can use these scenarios to force tough marksmanship challenges, because holding a baby in my right arm and shooting weekend only at a 3-yard fully exposed target isn't a difficult marksmanship challenge.
Right.
Trying to shoot a headshot at 15 yards with strong hand only, that's a marksmanship challenge. And you can force difficult marksmanship challenges using the rule book, but it's sort of like video game design, where they just start throwing more bad guys at you to make the level harder instead of being creative with your level design. You don't need to do goofy shit to make it tougher. You can just be smarter with your stage design. But we're an all-volunteer sport on both sides, USPSA and IDPA, so it's difficult to ask people to invest part-time job levels of effort into something where they're not getting paid.
Yep, absolutely. And here's the other warning I will give IDPA, and this is my opinion only, right? Coming from someone who doesn't even hold any classification in IDPA, because red dots still don't count for classification, but whatever. If USPSA goes, you know what, we kind of learning to it, who gives a fuck where you put your gun? You can put your gun anywhere you want, right? If USPSA does that, IDPA is done. They're done.
Yeah, because what you'll see is the guys right now who are shooting limited minor because they carry like Gabe White, limited minor god. Les is shooting limited minor from AIWB now because he wants to be cool too.
He just got 15th in limited shooting from concealment down at Florida Open, bro.
Yeah. He shot real well. That's stupid.
That is stupid.
And one of the things that Les has going for him as well, and we could talk about matches forever, is that he's still in a place where he's got good match strategy.
Yeah.
And so that gives him that slight leg up over just pure shooting skills. But yeah, I think that if USPSA woke up tomorrow morning and was like, yeah, so production, you can either
carry optics.
So, yeah. If they were like production and carry optics, you can either have your gun, in the traditional position. They could even do this. They could say you can have your gun in the traditional production carry optics holster setup, or you can carry it AIWB concealed. Those are your choices. I think that would be a real shot at that IDPA would have a hard time capturing new shooters out of that. Because my generation and younger, I'm the oldest millennial, and younger millennials and, whatever Gen Tide Pod that's coming up behind us, they don't carry at 3 o'clock behind the hip in a Milt Sparks holster, which is kind of a bummer. I've got a Milt Sparks holster for a Beretta, and it's an awesome holster,
Right.
but that's not where they carry. That's not where the people they follow on the internet carry. That's not where the majority of the classes that are being taught carry from. So if they're like, you know what, I want to get serious about this and shoot a little matches, then they're gonna go and shoot where they can carry the gun that they have.
Yep. Yep. 100%. 100%. So, yep. I think that covers it, man. So
Awesome.
listen, man, where can they find you?
All right, you can find me on the internet. You can find me at youtube.com/gunnutsmedia. That's where I put a lot of my content. I still have a blog that I've actually written for recently, which is weird for me, at gunnuts.net. And then everything that I put out, I'll also cross post on my Facebook page, which you can follow. I think it's facebook.com/Caleb Shooting. Just search for me on Facebook. You have to send a friend request, it's the wrong one. Just go like my fan page on Facebook. And I cross post everything over there. And then if you like pictures of dogs and whiskey, you can follow me on Instagram. Just search for Caleb Giddings and follow the guy with dogs and whiskey.
Yep. And then what's the name of your YouTube channel?
YouTube, it's Gun Nuts Media. YouTube.com/Gun Media. Yep, easy to find.
Yep. Good stuff. Good stuff, guys. Go there and get follow the clickbait, man. It's an enjoyable thing, you know.
Awesome.
Dirty little pleasure there. So again, guys, if you like these podcasts, do me a favor, don't be lazy. Subscribe, like it, throw a comment in if you want in there. I don't read the comments, so knock yourself out. If you want to come train with me, modernsamuraiproject.com. Check out the classes button. It'll list all the classes that I'm teaching. Love to train with you. That being said, regardless of anything we've ever said here, be good, stay safe, get training.